Stop it.
Welcome back, everyone. Happy Comic-Con week. This will be my full breakdown Easter eggs video for Deadpool and Wolverine. I had to watch the movie like 3 or 4 times just to catch everything, and I probably still missed a couple things. That's how dense it is with Easter eggs and references and cameo scenes. Marvel Jesus doing everything he can to change the face of the MCU going forward, so we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We'll get more Fantastic Four and related stuff this weekend too because of the Marvel Comic-Con panel, and relevant for this video because there is a lot of Fantastic Four references, as well as other references to old Fox Marvel movies too. Really big spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie yet, because we need to talk about everything that happened start to finish. So just starting with the beginning, the opening titles, the new Marvel intro. They use the traditional long-form Marvel intro. They've created a bunch of different brands and different intros for the TV shows, for the animated shows now, to differentiate between different types of productions. In the new version of this intro, they added a couple scenes from the previous Deadpool movies and moved some stuff around inside the letters. This is from the final fight in the first Deadpool movie, the superhero landing scene. But they put a new scene from Deadpool and Wolverine in the M here. This is actually taken from the fight scene that they have in the minivan later in the movie. I think this might be one of the first times that they added a scene to the intro from later in the very same movie. Usually in the past what they do is they'll wait till like the next movie to add scenes from the previous movie. Then the Marvel fanfare music with Deadpool humming the song itself, remarking how catchy it is, and the Marvel Studios logo changes to Deadpool's red costume in the background, like that's the texture of his red costume. Then the actual Marvel logo itself changes to red and yellow for Deadpool and Wolverine colors. They start the movie at the end of the first act after he's already escaped the TVA and goes looking for other versions of Wolverine. The first place he goes are the woods on the main X-Men universe, his original universe where Wolverine died during the events of the Logan movie. He spends this whole intro explaining what's going on with him since the events of Deadpool 2, breaking the fourth wall a bunch, talking about events in real life. When he says it's been a while, that's because Deadpool 2 came out in 2018 right after Avengers Infinity War. He talks about the Fox-Disney buyout happening. The reason why he didn't think he'd ever be back is because he thought that Marvel would recast the Deadpool character. There are a couple of jokes about this in real life after the Fox-Disney buyout completed, but that wasn't until after Avengers Endgame in real life in 2019. So that's when he actually started having real meetings with Kevin Feige about doing a new Deadpool movie under the Marvel banner. He makes fun of Marvel and Kevin Feige for being stupid enough to let him have his own movie franchise. That's why they flash Kevin Feige's name as producer while he's saying that. This is the first of countless Disney jokes throughout the movie. Then he explains that he and Hugh Jackman lied when they released that promo earlier this year, teasing the movie, saying that they would not touch the events of the Logan movie. Like, we're not going to mess with Logan at all, don't worry. Saying that they are definitely going to mess with it as he digs up Logan's dead body. The I Like Me mug he stole from the desk of the TVA agent that was staring at his butt when he fell into the portal later in the movie. Apparently he just yoinked this mug when he was doing that. But the phrase, I like me, is one of many John Candy references in the movie. He's meant to be Ryan Reynolds' all-time favorite comedian, so he references John Candy in a lot of his movies, not just the Deadpool movies, but all of his movies. The actual phrase on the mug, I like me, comes from his famous speech during Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I like me. My wife likes me. My customers like me. Because I'm the real article.
When he says he's digging up his corpse in downtown North Dakota, that's the place where this was in the Logan movie, where his body was buried in the Logan movie. He calls him the one and only Wolverine. That's a bit of a joke in real life because Kevin Feige said he had no plans to recast the Wolverine character, even though we do get Henry Cavill playing a Wolverine variant later in the movie, the Cavalrine. He also makes the joke later that Disney's going to keep bringing him back to do this until he's 90, which is probably going to wind up being true at this point. You notice Wolverine's adamantium-coated skeleton is still wearing the same shirt that he had on during the Logan movie. He was just buried in the shirt, and he still got that tree branch sticking out of his torso that actually killed him. He makes a reference to the residuals, which are payments that actors and creatives that work on movies, TV shows get each year after the fact, so the bigger the box office, the bigger the trail residuals that they get for the rest of their lives. He mentions the big bags of Marvel cash that it takes to resurrect him and Ryan Reynolds himself because Disney and Marvel probably did pay them big bags of cash, and they found a way to explain how he could still be alive in this movie by being a variant. Notice he also refers to the skeleton as Hugh Jackman, not Wolverine, and uses an Australian accent because Hugh Jackman is Australian in real life. He speaks with his natural accent outside of his movies all the time.
Yeah, don't give him too much attention. That's why I can't be there. There'll be sun.
Paradox's TVA agents find him and he proceeds to kill them in probably one of the most creative fight scenes that I think we've ever seen in a Marvel movie, next to that elevator fight scene in Captain America Winter Soldier. Using Wolverine's adamantium skeleton to destroy each of them in hilarious ways. He makes the Gossip Girl reference because Ryan Reynolds is married to Blake Lively in real life. Her big show was Gossip Girl. She plays the Lady Deadpool character later in the movie, and really cool real-life reference too, side tangent, Rob Liefeld said in real life years ago, before Blake Lively met Ryan Reynolds on the set of Green Lantern, that was the first time they actually met each other. Way before that, when she was just doing Gossip Girl, Rob Liefeld and his wife were huge fans of hers and of the show before he ever met Ryan Reynolds. And he created the Lady Deadpool character in the comics inspired by Blake Lively's character on Gossip Girl. Did not know that Rob Liefeld was a huge Gossip Girl fan. Back in 2022, before they completely decided on what the story of Deadpool and Wolverine would be, he posted to his Instagram saying that if they ever did Lady Deadpool in live action, Blake Lively should play her. She was the original inspiration for the comic book version of the character. It only makes sense that you just cast her if Ryan Reynolds is now live action Deadpool. Like, why don't you just have husband and wife be in the same movie? I'll talk about their cameos later, but their children in real life also play some of the Deadpool core characters. So like Ryan Reynolds has his entire family in this movie. When he says death by day player, what that means is a day player is an actor who's only there for a small part for a single day, like a very small actor, bigger than an extra. He makes some jokes about movie extras later in the movie too. But usually day players aren't big enough to have like really, really big paychecks. As he starts to fight them, they start playing NSYNC's Bye Bye Bye, and while he fights them, he also does the original dance number that NSYNC did to this song during the music video back in the early 2000s. I think the reason why they chose this song in particular, because it could have been any funny song like this, is because the song came out in the year 2000, and that's the same year that the first X-Men movie came out, and a lot of this movie references that original X-Men movie. During the fight, they put all the credits, everyone's names, on the different bones of Wolverine himself. Sean Levy, the director, was brought onto the project by Ryan Reynolds himself. They'd previously worked on 2 movies together before this, and Marvel was so happy with what Sean Levy did with the movie. It was such a big success that it sounds like he'll do more Marvel movies in the future. Then he puts on the Wolverine claws and does the iconic Wolverine comic book pose, which is meant to be a Wolverine pool reference. In the comics, he's just a Deadpool who actually has adamantium claws. Then he does a quick recap of everything that happened right after the Deadpool 2 post-credit scenes with him killing versions of himself from Wolverine Origins, Ryan Reynolds before he made Green Lantern, baby Hitler. So apparently he's able to take Cable's time travel device and hop to the 616 universe, still in 2018, but this is meant to be the proper MCU now. And he tries to join the Avengers on March 14th, 2018. The reason why that date is super important is because it's right before the events of Avengers Infinity War, so within a month of this, like half the people in this universe are going to get snapped. We get our first big cameo scene of the movie, and it's Jon Favreau's Happy Hogan, who's interviewing Deadpool for a spot on the Avengers. They mostly use this for comedy, like he makes fun of Happy for only being Iron Man's driver, his superpower being parallel parking. But part of the reason why they're using Happy Hogan in this cameo scene, because it could have been any MCU character at all. The reason why it's him is because Jon Favreau was also a version of Foggy Nelson in the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie, and a lot of this movie references that Daredevil film. There's actually multiple Jon Favreau cameo scenes in the movie. One of them happens during the actual end credits, but as his version of Foggy Nelson. This building is meant to be the new Avengers base in upstate New York. Around the room, you see they have a couple major artifacts and Easter eggs from previous Marvel movies, primarily the main Avengers movies. But I think what they're also referencing during this, like Deadpool is looking for purpose, but I think the Avengers rejection is meant to be a nod to Ryan Reynolds in real life trying to get himself into the next Avengers movie, like Avengers 5. Like, will you please put me in Avengers 5? And they're just clowning on the idea that Kevin Feige is telling him, no, you can't be in the next Avengers movie. Also, the fact that Ryan Reynolds revealed in real life he pitched Kevin Feige 20 versions of this movie, Deadpool and Wolverine, before Kevin Feige agreed to actually make the movie. So a whole lot of jokes about rejection in real life and in the movie universe too. I'll probably do a deleted scenes video at some point in the next week or two. I'll talk about the other versions of the movie that they were almost going to make during that video. There are many, many other versions. Around the room, we see the prototype for Captain America's shield from the Iron Man movies. Behind Deadpool, you can see a couple Iron Man faceplates, one from Iron Man 2. This is like the one the little kid was wearing when Iron Man saved him. The funny thing about that is that the little kid was played by Jon Favreau's real-life son, who also directed that movie. I think this other faceplate is from the Iron Man Mark III. They have the Mark V, which is the briefcase suit from Iron Man 2. This is a picture of Iron Man and Spider-Man that they took for the fake internship that Iron Man tried to lie to Aunt May about back during Captain America Civil War. This was meant to pay off that Easter egg. The photo also winds up appearing during Avengers Endgame. He makes a joke about schmasturbating, which is jerking it with Hulk hands. My assumption is that Deadpool knows about the Avengers because they might exist in the Fox X-Men universe and we just never saw them, or he saw them at some point when he was jumping across universes. But if you really think about it, he knew about the DC universe in Deadpool 2. He knew that Josh Brolin also played a version of Thanos.
Zip it, Thanos. We have a deal and you forgot.
So I think part of the way he knows about the Avengers is his fourth wall breaking powers just give him access to so much more knowledge that normal movie characters do not have. It's part of the reason why Deadpool is one of the most powerful characters in Marvel Comics just in general, because he can literally pause the story. As they pan around the room, behind Happy you see the Iron Man Mark II helmet. Pictures beneath it are just of the original Avengers. The Forbes magazine of Pepper Potts is from Iron Man 3. Deadpool refers to Iron Man as the Man, asking if he doesn't do cameos like this anymore. There's talk about Robert Downey Jr. coming back for Secret Wars though, but I think the idea is that he just does not do smaller one-off cameos like this in general. He hasn't done them for a long time. When he talks about his experience with teams in the past, he tells them all about the events of X-Force during Deadpool 2, RIP. There's also a joke about Cable not testing well in focus groups, which is why I think that he's not in Deadpool and Wolverine. They zoom in on Iron Man's second arc reactor that they put on his funeral pyre at the end of Avengers Endgame. But remember, this scene is happening during March 2018 before Infinity War, so none of that stuff has happened, like he's still alive and well. When he says he doesn't want to spend the rest of his life as a one-trick pony, that's also a bit of a meta reference to Ryan Reynolds saying he doesn't want to just be Deadpool in the Deadpool movies, he wants to try and be in other Marvel movies. In the background, you also see a Mobius strip on the shelves. You could think of that as a reference to when Iron Man figured out time travel during Endgame, but that hasn't actually happened yet. Notice also that Happy Hogan says the Avengers will keep an eye on him. I think that's also a joke that maybe we'll let you be in the next Avengers movie, wink wink. Marvel's changed so much in real life in the last couple of years, their whole plan for Avengers 5 has completely changed, but Secret Wars I think is still going to be Avengers 6, so we don't know about Deadpool in Avengers 5, but I think for sure he will be in Avengers 6. As he leaves, trying to get burgers with Happy Hogan at Shake Shack, there's a poster of the Stark Expo from 1954 behind him. Then there's a time jump to 6 years later in the main X-Men universe, his original universe he's gone back to, making it 2024 during the events of the movie. And he's since become a used car salesman, just working with Peter to pay the bills, having retired from being a superhero, crushed by the Avengers' rejection. Zoom and enhance inside his locker, there's a Canadian mounted book, which is a book that John Candy's character was reading during Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Deadpool has his own copy of this book since Deadpool 2. We see him reading it during that movie. He staples the toupee to his head because remember, he has really bad cancer, so he can't grow hair. While he tries to sell the family on the minivan, he makes a ton of jokes about butt stuff. There's a lot of that in this movie, like the pegging jokes, for instance. That's just like a small part of it. This is also meant to be the same family that they crash through the portal to see later in the film. When he says he wants to have kids someday, they don't really get into it during this movie, but at some point after the events of Deadpool 2, Vanessa was supposed to have a miscarriage, so I guess that she had been pregnant at some point. Remember, at the end of the movie, he also says that they're going to name their baby Cher. I think that's meant to be the baby who died. Peter then reveals that he's keeping his old Deadpool suit in his locker and makes a joke about not wearing it himself, wink wink, foreshadowing Peter Pool at the end of the movie when he comes to save Deadpool and Wolverine wearing the suit. There's a couple more John Candy references. Notice that he's wearing that red Hawaiian shirt. It's similar to the one that John Candy was wearing during Brewster's Millions. The bike helmet here and the bike are also the same ones that Peter Pool rolls up with later in the film. We find out that it's Deadpool's birthday. The people taking pictures of him from afar are Paradox's rogue TVA hunters who said that they've been watching him for a while. When Peter says, "We are Deadpool," that's meant to be a joke that they pay off with a Deadpool core at the end of the film. You could also think of it as a "We are the Flash" joke too. We find out that Peter is the person that he says got his nipples and dong pierced, like he says a friend, but it's really just Peter that got himself pierced. The apartment that he's currently living in with Blind Al is number 17. Deadpool number 17 was an issue where he briefly joined the X-Men. This movie is full of X-Men crossover. The majority of the main characters from previous Deadpool movies are back. Later we find out that he went back in time using Cable's time travel device to also save Shatterstar and Vanessa. He literally says 6 years ago you'd all be dead. That's just a joke about the end of Deadpool 2. When we see him holding the green cup here, you could think of that as a sly Green Lantern reference. He tends to make Green Lantern jokes in almost every single movie that he makes. There are a couple more fourth wall breaks when Blind Al asked him to do some coke, Disney jokes, Kevin Feige jokes, saying that he said that they could do anything in this movie but that. The funny thing is that in real life, Kevin Feige actually responded to this question, saying that he didn't tell them they couldn't use that stuff in this movie, he just didn't think that it was that funny. I think the idea is that he was heavily implying that Ryan Reynolds should not try to use that stuff in this movie. This kind of fourth wall break is also Deadpool acknowledging that he knows that he is a fictional character in a movie, like they're making the Deadpool movie while he's speaking to Blind Al right now. He's actually known that he's been a fictional character in a movie like this for a long time. Blind Al references Forrest Gump, White Girl Interrupted in the Frozen movie. When she says she prays that fire claims him and finishes the job, that's a reference to his origin story from the first Deadpool movie when he almost burned alive but his regenerative powers had kicked in. We find out that both Deadpool and Colossus are superfans of the Great British Bake Off show. When he tells this person no speaking lines, that's a joke about the actor not having a big enough part in the film to actually get speaking lines. Later, he also gets pissed off at him for trying to improv new lines that weren't in the original movie script. When Vanessa says that she's been dating someone new called Dermot, I think that's meant to be a Dermot Mulroney joke. He also played the former US president during Secret Invasion, so a bit of a Marvel joke too. Thunderbolt Ross is supposed to become the new US president during Captain America Brave New World. We're going to see that movie February 2026. But here's the thing with Vanessa and Deadpool in the movie. I think that Vanessa here is lying about having a new boyfriend, and she's just saying this to try and find out what's going on with Deadpool because he's been so messed up in the head that he essentially left. I think the idea is that she's just been waiting for him to deal with his stuff and come back to her, which he does by the end of the movie. To make a Spider-Man pun, Deadpool basically has a web block at the beginning of this movie, sort of a midlife crisis, and he has to get over that by the end of the film, which he does, and I think it's implied that he and Vanessa will get back together. When he's blowing out his candles, he calls Blind Al a round earther, implying that Deadpool is a flat earther. He also reveals later that he can't read. So as good a fighter as Deadpool is, apparently he is just dumb as rocks. Then the TVA knocks on the door to arrest him. We get all the stripper jokes, the Disney pegging joke. He also makes a Pretty Woman reference. If you haven't seen that movie, Julia Roberts plays a hooker, and her whole thing is that she doesn't kiss her clients. Strictly a third base kind of working girl. The TVA says Deadpool's full name, including his middle name. We don't hear people say it that often. It's Wade Winston Wilson. They take him back to the TVA where we meet Matthew Macfadyen's Paradox character. He poops his pants on purpose like he was conscious when he did it. There are a bunch of jokes about them giving all this exposition to explain why he's at the TVA. When he says the TVA name is a throwback kind of thing, that's because they don't prune variants anymore the way they used to before the events of Loki Season 1. This is all part of Paradox's secret master plan. He hates what the TVA has turned into after the events of Loki Season 2, and he wants them to be more like they used to be before Loki came along. But here's a big question I've been seeing. People are wondering, why did he save Deadpool? Like, what did he need Deadpool specifically for so badly if he already had the Time Ripper? Paradox tells Deadpool that his superiors at the TVA told Paradox that Ryan Reynolds' version of Deadpool will serve some super important purpose in the future that they absolutely have to have him for, but they don't totally know what that is. I think that's meant to be tied to the Thor cameo scene with him in Deadpool, with him dying in his arms, and it's meant to be more of a Secret Wars kind of joke. Like the super important event that they can't talk about right now, wink wink, is Secret Wars, where he fights with the Avengers. So in the movie, Paradox is trying to destroy Deadpool's timeline, the main X-Men timeline, but he can't destroy Deadpool because the TVA wants him. He's super important for later. That's basically the only reason why Paradox brings him to the TVA and tries to turn him into another TVA hunter, like Agent Deadpool. All the stuff with sending him to the Void, Cassandra Nova, he didn't need Deadpool to do any of that stuff. He just needed Deadpool out of his universe so that Paradox could destroy it. And if it wasn't clear, when Deadpool is at the TVA here, it's meant to be after the events of Loki Season 2. If you look in the background, you can see the multiverse tree structure on the posters in the background. That's just meant to reference Loki's multiverse tree. Notice on the monitors in front of them, they flash scenes of a bunch of Marvel and Deadpool references, scenes from all the Captain America movies, Winter Soldier, Civil War, the first Captain America movie, from Avengers Endgame, Age of Ultron. They're focusing so much on the Cap references because of the Johnny Storm, Chris Evans, Human Torch, Fantastic Four references later in the movie too. just to set up the idea that Deadpool loves Captain America, so that's why he thinks it's Captain America when he sees Chris Evans' character. There's even a scene on these monitors of Deadpool accepting an Emmy Award for the Welcome to Wrexham TV show, which he did in real life just a little while ago. This is a video that Ryan Reynolds posted of him acting as if Deadpool were accepting the award for Ryan Reynolds.
Woo! Wow. Got Mr. Lively couldn't be here to accept this broken Emmy, so he sent me on his behalf.
Paradox and Deadpool make a ton of MCU and Avengers references. Like I said, I think the mystery future event that he sees with Deadpool and Thor is for Avengers Secret Wars. He breaks the fourth wall again a couple times in a row, citing gratuitous cameos, like he knows that he's in the middle of a movie while they're making the movie. When he says the power of the Marvel Cinematic Universe is about to change forever, that's a big Black Adam Rock joke. The Rock said the same basic thing about the Black Adam movie, changing the hierarchy of the DC Universe. Spoiler warning, the hierarchy of the DC Universe did not change. He calls himself Marvel Jesus. That's also one of the many jokes about how he's going to save the MCU with this movie, because people are now way more interested in Marvel in real life just because of this movie. Also, later in the film, one of the Deadpool core members is a Deadpool Jesus figure, or a Messiah pool, whatever you want to call him. He breaks the fourth wall again to smash the camera, filming this movie, and grabs the boom mic recording their dialogue while they're filming the movie, and says, "Screw it, Fox, I'm going to Disneyland." In real life, Deadpool and Wolverine just came to the Avengers campus at Disneyland to start doing their live show. So the character just literally went to Disneyland. He reveals to Paradox that he doesn't know how to read. He gets his new armor and weapons. Behind him as he opens the door, notice the way they frame the shot. It looks like there's a giant X behind him for X-Men, but also his katanas that stick up behind his back. There's a new suit. The katanas are still named Bea and Arthur for the Golden Girls because Deadpool is a huge Golden Girls stan. He gets new guns. The katanas are also made of adamantium too, which is why Wolverine doesn't destroy them during their first fight against each other. His guns also say "Smile for the Flash" on the barrels because guns flash when fired. The tailor's white gloves grabbing his junk and butt constantly is also a Disney Mickey Mouse joke too, because Disney owns Deadpool technically. He's basically saying that Disney is a predator. When he gets off on floor number 943, that might be a reference to Deadpool number 43 in the comics, where he was trying to get home from space, because in this movie, that's basically what he's trying to do, just get home. Calls the TVA TemPads Amazon Fire Phones. The joke there is that the phone was deemed as a failed product. Paradox explains the concept of anchor beings. That's new to this movie. They didn't have those during Loki. There are a couple concepts that they introduced brand new in this film. Basically, the idea is that someone's so fundamental to the existence of a universe, a timeline, that if they die, the entire universe will die with them. And in this universe, it was the original Wolverine from the events of the Logan movie. And because so much of the movie is clowning on cinematic universes in general, not just the MCU, part of the joke with Wolverine being the anchor being of the X-Men universe is that for a long time in real life, he was thought to have carried the franchise, like he was critical to the popularity of the X-Men movies, so a lot of the X-Men movies started to revolve more and more around his character. Now that he supposedly died in that universe, there's no more interest, quote-unquote, in the X-Men movies, so the universe is starting to die. It's going to take that original X-Men universe about 1,000 years to die, but Paradox, because he wants to take over the TVA and make things like they used to be, doesn't want to wait that long, so he creates the Time Ripper to speed that up. Doing so without letting the rest of the TVA finding out that he's doing it. Notice on his TemPad there's Miss Minutes here. This is on all the TemPads. It's the closest we get to a Miss Minutes cameo scene during the movie. They replay the events of the Logan movie on the monitors. When he says the multiverse doesn't need a babysitter, that's basically what God Loki is doing right now. Deadpool steals the TemPad and that coffee mug, and they show the rest of the intro. He kills those TVA agents with his Wolverine claws. He calls it Wolverining. Then he kills the TVA agent who insults him and Canada. Lots of Canada jokes during this because Ryan Reynolds is from Canada in real life, as is the Deadpool character and the Wolverine character. They start the montage of Wolverine variants in other universes. There are some deep cuts here from the comics. They start with a comic-accurate, short Wolverine. This is how tall he's meant to be in the comics. It's a joke about how all the fans in real life have always complained that Hugh Jackman is way too tall for Wolverine. In the comics, he's only about 5'3". During the X-Men 97 episodes, they depict him as being more comic book accurate, like he's way shorter than the other X-Men. Deadpool calls him Harry Lou Retton. Mary Lou Retton was an Olympic gymnast who was just very, very short. This one is Age of Apocalypse Wolverine. We actually saw a version of him during X-Men the Animated Series. This one is Patch Wolverine. This is Henry Cavill Wolverine, who he calls the Cavalrine, making a bunch of DC, Superman, Justice League jokes, saying that they, Marvel, will treat him so much better than the people at DC did. They really did Henry Cavill dirty over at DC. This cameo is also meant to pay off a long-running fan rumor that Henry Cavill would be the new recast version of MCU Wolverine, like the John Krasinski Fantastic Four cameo scene paying off the rumor that he was going to be the new Reed Richards. This one is meant to be comic-accurate Old Man Logan Wolverine. This one is based on the X-Men comics where the Reavers crucified Wolverine on a giant X. Then we get the Wolverine vs. Hulk scene. It's a reference to their original fights in the comics from Incredible Hulk number 340. He makes a John Byrne brown and yellow suit because that's the suit he was wearing during that issue. This is meant to be Mark Ruffalo's version of the Hulk, and he makes that comic book cover image with him reflected in the claws. But in the original comic book, Wolverine was fighting the Gray Hulk, not the Green Hulk. When Hulk starts thrashing Deadpool, he starts reciting the same thing that Loki did during the first Avengers movie when Hulk thrashed him, calling him a dull creature. When Henry Cavill Wolverine punches him through the portal to the final Wolverine, the person he bumps into is Ollie Palmer, a Wrexham AFC player. Ryan Reynolds co-owns the team in real life with Rob McElhenney, and there's another Wrexham cameo later in the movie on his locker and another character during the Deadpool Corps. The one on his locker is a Notts County sticker. They're one of Wrexham's big rival teams. Later in the movie, there's a Welsh Pool member of the Dead Corps with a Welsh flag on his chest. It's played by Paul Mullen, another Wrexham AFC player. We meet the main version of Hugh Jackman's Wolverine in the movie. The reason why everyone on his Earth hates him, the terrible thing that he did, is that he got drunk one night while he was away. Humans killed the entire X-Men team, and in revenge, he slaughtered all of them and then went on a killing spree, killing tons of people all over the world. Basically pulling a Hawkeye from Avengers Endgame when he went full Ronin. And by the end of it, people started to think of him as a villain, turning on the X-Men. So basically, Wolverine got the world to hate the X-Men. That was like the terrible thing that he did, basically perverting the memory of the X-Men. Notice the bar that they're in is in Canada because there are a bunch of Canadian flags in the background here. He thinks Deadpool is a hooker at first. Apparently there's no Deadpool on this Earth because he didn't know him immediately. But there are Avengers because Wolverine says screw the Avengers later in the movie, like he's met them before and hates them. There's all kinds of jokes about Whiskey Dick of the Claws because he's so drunk. His healing factor means he has to drink a ton of booze to get drunk. When he smiles and puts his head on Deadpool's gun barrel, it's because he has an adamantium skull and knows that the bullet will do nothing because they're not adamantium bullets, they're just regular bullets. Deadpool makes the joke about long run times for movies. It's one of the reasons why Deadpool and Wolverine is only about 2 hours long. Normally you would expect the movie to be about 3 hours long. But the idea is that the shorter the movies are, the more that movie theaters can cram in different screenings each day, potentially earning more money for the studio and for the theaters. Because the ticket prices for longer movies is the same as the ticket prices for shorter movies. It was actually reported in real life, opening weekend, as of me posting this video, 45%, I think, of all movie screenings across the United States were just Deadpool and Wolverine. So like half the people in the United States alone were just watching Deadpool this weekend. Then he spots his yellow comic book accurate suit breaking the fourth wall again to say it only took 20 years to actually get it. When he comes back to the TVA through the portal, he says, "On your left," a reference to Avengers Endgame. There are many Endgame references during this. He says this Logan looks like he can do anything, even musicals, because Hugh Jackman has done many musicals in his career in real life. During the movie, they even used 2 songs that he sang during Greatest Showman and The Music Man. Later in the movie, he tells Cassandra Nova that he's going to make this Wolverine sing the opening parts of Music Man without warming up. Then he also makes some Bryan Singer original X-Men movie jokes, saying that this Wolverine looks like he's not embarrassed to be in a superhero movie, just clowning on the black leather suits from that first X-Men movie. Kevin Feige actually got his start in Hollywood on this movie. This is baby Kevin Feige behind the scenes of that while they were filming. He said the reason why they wore black leather suits in that instead of comic book accurate ones is because when they made the movie, the Matrix movies had just come out and they wore black leather in those movies. They earned so much money. All the executives in control of the movie and Bryan Singer felt like if the Matrix wore black leather and earned a ton of money, that they should do that in their movie too. Like, oh, we wear black leather, it'll help us. Sounds exactly like Hollywood learning all the wrong lessons from movie successes. When Deadpool calls Paradox the internet like an insult, it's a reference to the internet being mad about Wolverine being in Deadpool after their initial announcement, because in that they said they weren't going to mess with the events of the Logan movie, and people in real life were worried that they were going to trample on the Logan movie, which they actually kind of wound up doing, like he called it out at the beginning of the film. We're not going to avoid it, and he digs up his body. Then he breaks the fourth wall again to tell Wolverine that he's joining the MCU at a low point because popular opinion in real life has turned on Marvel movies as of late the last couple of years. There's a lot of jokes about this later in the movie too, absolutely ripping the multiverse saga of movies. They both get pruned and sent to the void. We get our first big fight scene between Deadpool and Wolverine in front of the wreckage of the 20th Century Fox sign, which Deadpool salutes as he says goodbye, like, "Goodbye, Fox." All because all these new Marvel movies that they're going to be in will be under the MCU banner. When Deadpool is first knocked down lying on the void waiting to get back up, to the left you can actually see the Secret Wars #5 comic book in real life. It's a real comic book you can actually go out to the store and buy, with Doctor Doom on the cover and that green Incredible Hulk Jingo soda that turned Stan Lee into a version of the Hulk in that movie. Part of me thinks them flashing this Doctor Doom Secret Wars cover means that the movie version of Secret Wars that Marvel winds up doing at some point will be a little bit different. I'll reference this later in the video too, because there are a couple Secret Wars adjacent style references where they're borrowing some of the plot of that for this movie, meaning that they probably won't repeat that when we get to the actual Secret Wars movie. He makes the Mad Max reference, saying they might be infringing on IP because Warner Brothers owns the copyrights to the Mad Max movies. Because we're on the void, there are a bunch of Easter eggs from a bunch of different movies and places in real life. There's Captain America's shield, Thor's winged helmet, a shield helicarrier in the background. This is the CN Tower from Toronto. Their fight scene here is great. I think there are better fight scenes later in the movie, but all the fight scenes in general in this film were top tier. He breaks the fourth wall again to call out how amazing their fight is going to be. Get your special sock out. As they pan around their fight, you see a giant Chitauri flying creature in the background, his big skeletal spine here. One of his katanas, you can see the hilts depict Deadpool symbols. When Wolverine almost chops his head off, that's a bit of a Headpool reference, like, let's see you survive without your head. Technically, he can do that, and we see Headpool later in the movie. Then we get our Chris Evans cameo scene as his Johnny Storm Human Torch from the old Fantastic Four movies. It was amazing. Chris Evans said in real life he doesn't really want to play Captain America again that much, but he's totally happy to play Johnny Storm again. Supposedly Chris Evans has also signed a contract to come back for Avengers Secret Wars, but they didn't say which character. It could be another version of Johnny Storm, it could be another version of Captain America, we'll see. Deadpool thinks that he's Captain America when he first sees him. They even play the Captain America theme music for a second before they make the Flame On reveal. There are a couple of jokes about Cap being in a rated R movie now, like you're going to encounter some more harsh language and some light butt play because Captain America has only been in PG-13 movies before. He also says that they were prohibited from doing coke on camera, implying that they're doing it off camera between scenes. We get a bunch more of the cameo scenes from the classic Fox Marvel movies. This is Ray Park, who came back to play his version of Toad from the original X-Men movie. He's riding in the Fantastic Car from the Fantastic Four movies, but it's actually based on the design of the Fantastic Car from the original Fantastic Four comics from the 1960s. We're also getting a lot of Fantastic Four announcements this weekend about the new movie. That'll be a completely separate video, completely different stuff going on in that film. These two tanks and the motorcycles are from the first Captain America movie. They're all Hydra designs. This is also Red Skull's car from that same movie, but it's been hot rodded to look just like Iron Man's hot rod car that he was working on in the first Iron Man movie, and it has an Iron Man hood ornament. So it's like there was an Iron Man in another universe who either bought it and hot rodded it out, or in his universe, he was a Hydra version of Iron Man. I also think this is meant to set up an Iron Man cameo scene that just didn't work out because earlier in the movie, they also added that joke about Robert Downey Jr. not doing cameo scenes anymore. Supposedly, one of the alternate endings of this movie was going to involve an Iron Man or Robert Downey Jr. kind of post-credit scene, but I don't know which version or which character he was going to play, if it was going to be a version of Iron Man or a version of some other character. This is meant to be the Cupcake Truck from the Moon Knight series. We get Pyro from the X-Men movies, the original Sabretooth played by Tyler Mane from the first X-Men movie. When Johnny Storm jumps down, Deadpool calls it a superhero landing. On the Void, this Human Torch was meant to be part of the Resistance group that they meet later in the movie. Wolverine smells Sabretooth before he sees him. Deadpool calls him out as his brother, which is true. Sabretooth is meant to be Wolverine's brother in the canon of the X-Men movies. The other person that's trapped over in the background in this other ball prison is meant to be a TVA agent that was played by Rob McElhenney, who, like I said, co-owns Wrexham with Ryan Reynolds in real life. He was supposed to be this character who gets eaten by a Goliath in the trailers, but his cameo scene wound up being cut from the final version of the movie that they played in theaters. He and Ryan Reynolds were joking about it on Twitter when the movie came out. When Chris Evans gets ready to flame on, they start playing the Avengers theme music, and Deadpool starts to say Avengers Assemble, but stop short at Assemble. That's meant to be a reference to Chris Evans' Captain America doing the exact same thing in Avengers Age of Ultron, like he almost said the full line. We get a better look at his Fantastic Four suit that he's wearing. It's a totally new one that wasn't featured in those previous Fantastic Four movies. Pyro's ability to control fire basically allows him to defeat him instantly. Notice on Wolverine's back here too before his fight, there's a cut that makes it look like an upside down A for Avengers symbol. There's also a flag on the evil X-Men's car in their base with an Anarchy A drawn over the Avengers symbol. Kevin Feige was wearing a hat with this logo on it, and Ryan Reynolds also posted this picture to his Instagram before the movie came out. Then we get that Wolverine versus Sabretooth fight. Deadpool says fans have waited decades for this because we haven't seen this Tyler Mane Sabretooth since the first X-Men movie a couple decades ago. He didn't come back for the second film, and then they recast with Liev Schreiber eventually. All these fighting tips that he gives to Wolverine are meant to be references to MMA fighting techniques.
Be nice. You shoot the double, you take him down. Side control, then full mount, and you ground and pound till he makes no sound because he's...
He winds up cutting Sabretooth's head off, R.I.P. Deadpool's speech here, "Behold the head of your precious Queen Furiosa," is based on the Mad Max movies. They got knocked out by a giant leg from a Sentinel in the X-Men movies. Their convoy passes by the pyramids, these weird bird creatures, both of which we saw during the Loki series, the birds and the pyramids. The pyramids are also meant to be a sly reference to X-Men Apocalypse in the Rama Tut version of Kang. As Deadpool wakes up, he says God of Thunder under his breath like he was dreaming of Thor. He makes a lot of Thor references during this movie. There are a bunch of jokes about Deadpool being impressed at how much of a motor mouth Johnny Storm is, like how much of a wisecracker he is. He winds up foreshadowing his own death, basically saying that he wants to die in the exact way that Cassandra Nova winds up killing him, ripping his skin off, which winds up setting up the post-credit scene as well too. During his conversation, he also mentions his version of Reed Richards. Deadpool literally calls out Loki Season 1 Episode 5 when they mention Alioth, as if Deadpool has watched the episodes of Loki. They pass by a bunch of other Easter eggs in the background. This is the Brooklyn Bridge. We see Cassandra Nova's base is made from a dead Ant-Man body in giant man form. His suit is the newer version of the suit, meaning that he would have had to have been pruned and died at some point after the events of Ant-Man the Wasp. Maybe this was a version of Ant-Man that tried to pull a Thanos. All of her minions are made up of evil variants from the X-Men movies, the non-MCU Marvel movies mostly, but they do have weapons, armor, and artifacts from all the different Marvel movies, including MCU movies. This person in the striped shirt is another version of the Russian, a villain from the Thomas Jane Punisher movie. Later in the film, they reference the Punisher. Deadpool says there's been many Punishers, but I think the one who was meant to be part of this resistance that worked with them was the Thomas Jane Punisher. There's Azazel from X-Men First Class. He's played by a new actor. This is Juggernaut from X-Men The Last Stand, but played also by another actor. In Frontier, next to Azazel is Lady Deathstrike and Callisto, also played by new actresses. And this woman over here is meant to be Psylocke from First Class, also played by a totally different actress. Deadpool's joke about Paul Rudd aging is from real life. People said for a long time that it seemed like Paul Rudd was aging in reverse as he got older. We meet Cassandra Nova, who's Professor X's evil twin from the comics. She has the same powers with a slightly different spin on them in this movie. She also has telekinesis in addition to telepathy, but in order to enter someone's mind, she has to physically touch them, and they actually made her fingers longer so that when she's finger probing people, it just looks extra freaky in the movie. She also has a healing factor like Deadpool and Wolverine. The chair that she rolls out on is a version of Professor X's chair from the original X-Men movies, but her age being a little bit younger makes her seem like she's more on par with the James McAvoy version of Professor X. But technically, it's the same version, like he's just a younger version of Patrick Stewart's Professor X. When she says she tried to strangle him in the womb, that's also from her comic book origin story. She says she was pruned at a very young age and has a standing deal with the TVA that she can do whatever she wants on the Void as long as she stays on the Void, which stands until Paradox reneges on their deal and tries to have her killed by Pyro. Deadpool then gets Chris Evans' Johnny Storm killed, R.I.P. He says he wasn't his favorite Chris. The Chris's are Chris Evans, Chris Hemsworth, Chris Pratt, and Chris Pine. Deadpool claims that he was destroying the budget of their movie, so it's a good thing that he died because he's an expensive actor. Cassandra Nova implies that she also has a deal with Alioth, who comes to consume people and things. She calls them rent. You could think of that as a Spider-Man Rent reference. The rent is due. Deadpool and Wolverine escape on the leg of another Sentinel. This giant structure that they pass over seems like part of the Red Room from the Black Widow movie. Deadpool jokes he's going to tell Blake that Wolverine was trying to get in his pants. That's Blake Lively, Ryan Reynolds' real-life wife. Then apparently this diner that they go to next was supposed to be the diner from Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man 2 movie where he was selling pizzas from. I don't know why that changed. I think it's just meant to be a regular diner in the final version of the movie. But at some point, there was meant to be a much bigger Easter egg with the actual diner itself. Deadpool breaks the fourth wall again, asking if they should wait for a third act flashback to get Wolverine's backstory. He lets him know how much he hates the Avengers, probably because he had to fight them on his world after he started killing a ton of people. They actually got into that during X-Men 97, where the Avengers are not mutants, so they work for the government, so they wind up fighting the mutants because the government starts going after the mutants. Deadpool also saying that he didn't make the cut for the X-Men as well is a callback to Deadpool 2, when he tried and failed to join the team. They set up the X-23 cameo scene with Deadpool explaining how the original Wolverine died protecting her. We meet Dogpool, who is from the Deadpool Corps in the comics. His backstory is just meant to be a parody of the original version of Deadpool. He also has a healing factor just like Deadpool. Within the movie, her other name is Mary Poppins, but in real life, the dog who plays Dogpool won UK's Ugliest Dog competition. She's owned by Nicepool, who's also played by Ryan Reynolds, but the credits actually list him as Gordon, who's Ryan Reynolds' fake twin that he invented for a joke a long time ago. So during the movie, when he gets this Nicepool killed and uses him as a human shield, killing his annoying twin that he invented a long time ago. All because he wants those golden desert eagles and he wants Dogpool. When he mentions Ladypool just had a baby and lost the weight super fast, that's a reference to Blake Lively in real life having just given birth to Ryan Reynolds' newest child recently when she filmed this cameo scene. Most of Ryan Reynolds' children also cameo later in the movie. I'll point them out when we get to that part. Deadpool makes a joke about Hugh Jackman's real-life divorce, saying that he let himself go since the divorce and that's why he's wearing the costume and not going shirtless. This Conquistador shipping vessel that they walk by is from the X-Men comics. They drive past a bunch of Thanos' Q ships from Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. You can let me know what you think happened to get these pruned. He makes fun of Wolverine's yellow suit, saying that he looks like he's fighting crime for the Los Angeles Rams because of the yellow and blue colors. Later, Wolverine explains the reason why he wears the suit all the time, like he was wearing it under his normal street clothes even though he wasn't busy being a superhero. It's meant to be his reminder of the X-Men that he lost. They make the joke about the educated wish, which they reference a couple times later in the movie. He makes the Spider-Man thwip sounds and motions, meaning that he's met a version of Spider-Man at some point. Let me know which version you think that it is. Then he refers to himself as the Merc with a Mouth, which is Deadpool's nickname in the comics. They have their fight inside the car, which is probably one of the best, most creative fight scenes that they've had in a Marvel movie since Captain America Winter Soldier's elevator fight scene. The X-23 finds them passed out, brings them back to the Resistance base, and we find out that it's made from the ruins of the Darkhold Temple in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. They even have the Scarlet Witch carving on the ceiling. Everybody looking around to see if we see a version of Scarlet Witch Wanda somewhere. Don't worry, she'll be back eventually. They'll reference her later this year during the Agatha All Along TV episodes. Around their base inside here, there's all kinds of Easter eggs. He wakes up in Hulk's bed from Thor Ragnarok, also saying Thor again. Like every time he wakes up after being passed out, he says Thor or God of Thunder. Lots of Thor references in this movie. All these swords that they show you are Blades swords. I think the chess set is just meant to be a reference to Professor X and Magneto's chess games that they played. We get a bunch more of the big cameo scenes, starting with Jennifer Garner's Elektra from the Ben Affleck Daredevil movie. Wesley Snipes' Blade, could not believe that they got him to cameo. And we get super deep cut Channing Tatum Gambit because the Gambit movie that he was making never actually got made. Most of the jokes with his character in this part of the movie are a reference to that. The fact that he was almost Gambit, like he wanted people to call him Gambit, but it never quite worked out, ... Deadpool also thinks that Elektra is Wonder Woman before she says her name. The whole joke about Blade being retired is a reference to Blade Trinity, and then Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool saying you never did like me because he hated both Ryan Reynolds on the set of that movie. Like there was some beef between the two of them while they were making the movie, and his character Blade also hated the Hannibal character that Ryan Reynolds played in that movie. Wesley Snipes actually said that Ryan Reynolds called him up and was like, "This is awesome, I would love to do it. Is Marvel ever going to let us do this?" Because he knew that they were going to make the Mahershala Ali Blade movie, which he also jokes about later in the film. Apparently, if there was any beef between Wesley Snipes and Ryan Reynolds 20 plus years ago, it is all over now, like it's water under the bridge. One of my other favorite Channing Tatum Gambit jokes too is when they're each saying how they wound up on the Void. They just say the TVA showed up and pruned them, but Gambit says, "I don't know, maybe I was born here," because his movie never got made, so he never had a universe to come from, so he was literally created for the purposes of this movie on the Void. So he kind of was born on the Void. Deadpool also breaks the fourth wall a couple more times when he's joking with him about his dialect coach not being very good and not understanding what he's saying. "I'm missing a bunch of important exposition here." Then they make a bunch of Magneto jokes, saying that Magneto, Quicksilver, probably Evan Peters' Quicksilver because we're talking about X-Men references during this movie mostly, Punisher, and Ben Affleck's Daredevil also died at some point. The other joke with Jennifer Garner's Elektra saying that it's no big deal is because Jennifer Garner also got married and then divorced to Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck also visited the set of the movie while she was filming her cameo scenes with their children because they share some children together just to visit her and have a fun time. I don't know if they ever had a deal to have him actually cameo as his Daredevil in the film. I think that it was always just going to be Jennifer Garner. They explained that Cassandra Nova also melted Magneto's helmet, so Juggernaut's helmet is the only one that will be able to block her powers. Technically because she's the twin of Professor X, that also makes Juggernaut her half-brother as well too. Deadpool also makes another Disney joke about them cheaping out on the cameo scenes by not paying for a Magneto cameo scene. When he says Gambit's power is close-up magic, that's also a callback to Jimmy Woo's close-up magic. Deadpool makes an Avengers reference saying that if they can't save their universes, they can avenge them, which is a callback to Iron Man's quote during the first Avengers movie. He references the Minions when saying that he can't understand a word that Gambit is saying. We get the X-23 cameo scene. She walks in, she reveals her name is Laura. That's because her name is Laura Kinney. Wolverine also has a son and another daughter in the comics named Daken and Gabby. Maybe at some point they'll introduce their characters too. She tells Wolverine the story of her original Wolverine to inspire him. New Wolverine references Beast, Cyclops, and Storm on his Earth, but they don't have cameos in the movie. Probably just because the movie had already gotten really top-heavy with cameo scenes, and the budget would have been out of control to pay for some of those actors to show up. We find out that Pyro is secretly working for Paradox, who orders him to kill Cassandra Nova. They drive past a version of Asgard that's been pruned. This ship that they pass is the Milano from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. When Wesley Snipes says that he'll only ever be the only Blade, it's a joke about Marvel just having trouble making that new Mahershala Ali Blade movie. They announced it at Comic-Con 2019, and here we are 5 years later as of me posting this video to the day of the Marvel 2024 Comic-Con panel. The 5 Punishers that Deadpool mentions are probably Dolph Lundgren, Thomas Jane, Ray Stevenson, R.I.P., John Bernthal, who we'll see come back during Daredevil Born Again episodes next year, and John Beck was the Punisher during the Spider-Man the Animated Series. They had that big fight against Cassandra Nova's mutants. X-23 even puts on her sunglasses from the Logan movie that she still has. Cassandra Nova sends Wolverine into his memory of the dead X-Men teammates. These are their graves here that he's seeing. They get Juggernaut's helmet on her, but then Wolverine spares her to honor the memory of Professor X to be the better person, because the whole reason that everybody hated him on his Earth is because he turned into a killing machine. She then agrees to help them return to the main X-Men universe. Now notice the Easter eggs inside Ant-Man's skull here all around her little room. She's created a makeshift version of Cerebro. Her chair here is actually Thanos' throne from Avengers Infinity War, meaning she's killed a version of Thanos at some point to take it. Then she makes all the Doctor Strange references saying that she killed a version that wound up on the Void and took his stuff. So on the back of the throne is lying the Cloak of Levitation, and she has the sling ring with 2 Infinity Stones in it, the Time Stone and the Reality Stone. Now, there are a couple of logic issues with her using Infinity Stones from another universe, like they shouldn't be able to travel across universes using some other pair of Infinity Stones, but I think they just wanted to have a cool moment like that in the movie. Marvel does that all the time where they'll break their internal logic that they set up in previous movies just in service of some cool moment in a new movie. Like, wouldn't it be cool if this character did XXX even if it doesn't make sense according to the rules they set up for themselves previously? Technically, the Infinity Stones should only work in the original universe that they came from, which is why they're just stones inside the TVA during Loki Season 1, just a couple paperweights. Deadpool makes a reference to Marvel's magical circle, talking about the Doctor Strange portal. They escape from Alioth, and Wesley Snipes says his iconic line from the first Blade movie. They crash through the portal onto the car that Peter is trying to sell to that family that Deadpool met at the beginning of the film, and he makes that joke about Disney making Hugh Jackman come back as Wolverine until he's 90. Pyro reveals Paradox's betrayal of Cassandra Nova, and she goes after him using the sling ring to go to the X-Men universe. When she says she wants to use the Time Ripper to destroy all other universes except for the Void, like just the Void will remain, that sounds like them doing a version of Secret Wars, just because Battleworld works a lot like the Void works. Because she dies at the end of the movie, that makes me think that whatever Avengers 6 Secret Wars winds up being in the MCU, it'll be a vastly different plot from the original comic book Secret Wars, both the old 1980s version and the more modern version. We get the Hunter B-15 cameo scene from the Loki series. Seems like she's gotten an upgrade since the end of Loki Season 2. This door that Cassandra Nova knocks Deadpool and Wolverine through is the Rob Liefeld's Just for Feet joke. There's a long-running gag in the fandom in real life that Rob Liefeld has always been really bad at drawing feet. Dogpool and Nicepool show up. He makes a Van Wilder joke, which is Ryan Reynolds' first big movie success in real life back in the day. If you haven't seen it, it's a bit of a trip. Nicepool makes his own fourth wall joke about The Proposal, one of Ryan Reynolds' other biggest movies early in his career, which pisses off regular Deadpool. Then we meet 100 different members of the Deadpool Corps, so there's only a couple of them that are like named special members from the Deadpool Corps. The rest of them, like most of them, are just generic variants of the original Deadpool in the old Deadpool costume. The important ones are Lady Deadpool, who is played by Blake Lively. Headpool is actually played by Nathan Fillion, of all people, who's currently filming the Superman movie right now, which is crazy. Crossing over Marvel and DC movies all over the place. Cowboy Deadpool is Matthew McConaughey. Most of you probably detected his voice. Baby Pool is actually credited as Ryan Reynolds' youngest child. This person is called Welsh Pool, who's played by Paul Mullen from Wrexham AFC. Next to him is Golden Age Deadpool from the comics, then Deadpool 2099. There's Kid Pool here, who's played by Ryan Reynolds' daughter in real life, Inez. I think this Deadpool variant is Death Mask from the comics. The black suit Deadpool, I think, is the Back in Black version of the character. This is Samurai Pool. Looking over in the background, you see a Greatest Showman version of Deadpool because of Hugh Jackman's Greatest Showman movie. They also play some of the Greatest Showman soundtrack in the movie too. There's one in a crown in the background. That might be King Pool. Let me know in the comments if you think you spotted any other special ones from the comics, but like I said, most of them are just meant to be generic copies of the basic original version of Deadpool. Then he makes a bunch of jokes clowning on the MCU multiverse saga, being bad, audiences being tired of the multiverse trope. Can we move past it now? Wizard of Oz did it best, did it first. Nicepool then claims that he's loved all the Marvel movies since Endgame. Winds up getting him killed on purpose, using him as a human shield so that he can take his golden guns, and then we get the Wolverine mask, finally, in another maximum effort from Deadpool. So a lot of people early on were questioning whether or not we'd actually see Wolverine in the mask. I figured we would see it at some point, but just not most of the movie, because they're paying for Hugh Jackman to show up so that they want people to be able to see his face for most of the movie. It's part of the reason why Ryan Reynolds takes his mask off so many times in the movie, so that they can remind you that it is Ryan Reynolds under the mask for a lot of casual viewers who don't know the Deadpool character. There's a pretty solid fight scene of them against the Deadpool Corps, just mowing through them. They have a Stanley cameo scene. It's a Stanley Steamer joke, which is a reference to a real-life brand that used to run all kinds of ads on TV. The year 1922 was the year that Stan Lee was actually born. On the back of the bus, Raymondo's Marvelous Morning Soup is an Easter egg for Thomas Raymond, the original Human Torch from Marvel Comics, who we saw during the first Captain America movie. All the Deadpools regenerate because they have healing factors, but they're saved by Peter Pool, who shows up wearing Deadpool's original suit that we saw in his locker at the beginning of the movie. All because the Deadpools claim that they have their own version of Peter, best friends, in each universe. They love Peter Pool. They go to stop the Time Ripper, and he makes a reference to Wolverine's mask being like Batman's cowl, but he can turn his head. That's a joke that a lot of the Batman actors, all the way back to Michael Keaton Batman, had cowls that they could not turn their head in, so it was like really hard for them to film action scenes in some of the suits. Deadpool and Wolverine then destroy the Time Ripper. Cassandra Nova is vaporized, so I don't expect her to come back in the future, or at least this version of the character. While they're slowly dying, the machine is being destroyed. You see flashback scenes of Deadpool's origin story when he first got his powers lying on the table, talking about Vanessa. There's a couple scenes from Deadpool 2 with him trying to touch her through the veil while he was briefly dead, like he was almost dead, but she had already been killed, so he was like trying to touch her beyond the veil of life. A lot of people wondering if we'll ever see Deadpool meet a version of Lady Death, just because she's such a big character to his character in the comics. Then the TVA lets this Wolverine stay on this main X-Men's Earth, and the timeline starts to heal because this Wolverine has become the new anchor being of this universe, redeemed himself essentially. They also implied that Peter is going to be hooking up with Hunter B-15. She agrees to rescue the resistance group from the Void. The reason why X-23 winds up in that ending scene with them is because this Earth, the main X-Men universe, is her original universe. They just plucked her from after the events of the Logan movie. I just did a much longer video about all the Easter eggs and references during the end of the movie, like all the Avengers post-credit scene shawarma references that he makes, the Feige's famous pizza, their cows in the post-credit scene with Chris Evans. But the big idea right now is that going forward, Hugh Jackman's Wolverine will stick around for more Marvel movies. They'll probably wind up eventually doing Deadpool 4 at some point. Who knows what that's going to be? But I also think that Marvel is now talking about doing more movies just in general with Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. So outside of Avengers Secret Wars, he'll show up in other movies. We don't know what they're going to be, but at some point we will find out. There was so much going on during the movie. I watched it a couple times and I probably still missed some of the big Easter eggs. So if you spotted anything in the movie, any Easter eggs or references that I didn't talk about in this video or my previous videos, just write them below in the comments. But remember, I did post like a completely separate post-credit scene video. So there's like a bunch of stuff that I talk about in that's not in this video. I'll post a link to that post-credit scene video at the end of this, but the other big reminder is that the Marvel Hall H panel at Comic-Con is tonight. I'll do a new video for that. We're supposed to get a couple big reveals for Fantastic Four. Maybe we'll get a new trailer for something like Captain America 4. Whatever they wind up doing, of course I will do videos for it. So be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of that. Everyone click here for that Deadpool and Wolverine post-credit scene video, and click here for my Marvel Hall H Comic-Con video. I'll update the link as soon as I post that video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one, and maximum effort.